Hello, welcome to Wildwood Teaching. I am Nicole Dravillas-Fravel, and today I have a guest with me. I have Dezire Clarke Meindersee from Cedar Tree Learning right here in Oregon. Dezire and I met because we are both part of the licensing effort here in Oregon. We're both committed members of the Outdoor Early Learning Alliance of Oregon. And like many people, I joined the Alliance because I saw all of the benefits of nature-based outdoor learning for preschoolers and wanted to pursue licensing so that I could open up the experience to a greater number of and a greater diversity of preschoolers. As I've been on this nature-based journey, I have realized that there's a bit of a challenge to inclusion in that, when we are in wild or public spaces and we don't necessarily have control over the environment, what are the adaptations that we can do that still make it inclusive? And Dezire has been doing this work. This is really an integral part of her program. So I thought I would bring her on today, and she can give us some hints based on her journey of what we can do to make our wild spaces inclusive for all children. So, hi, Des. Uh, can
Hi.
you start just by telling us just a little bit about Cedar Tree Learning, maybe how it works, the ages of the children that you serve, what kind of the structure of your program is?
Sure. Thanks for asking. So Cedar Tree Learning is all outdoors, 100%. We are in public parks, two particularly here in Portland Portland Public Parks. I serve children, and I call it myself a neighborhood forest school. So I serve a lot of local to the parks children. And I do have some children drive from a distance, but I do ages 4 to 10. So I serve children of all sorts of backgrounds, and specifically with my background in working with gifted and talented children and children on the autism spectrum, I have gained a lot of children that kind of fit that description. And this week I've had a camp. I call them seasonal offerings. So this is a summer seasonal offering, but normally I do work specifically with the families to cater a schedule for them at least 2 times a week. And then they are included in any of my offerings. So and I work with their specialists. They might have an occupational specialist, occupational therapist, or they might have a counselor. So I have professional collaboration with them as well. So that takes up my schedule, besides just spending time with the children outdoors.
Yeah, questions. You mentioned that you're in public parks, so you just want to get a picture of that. Are you talking playgrounds or real like wildlife preserve parks?
Oh, right. Yes, thanks. They are nature parks, specifically called nature parks. One's at Arboretum. So it's very full of trees and big trees, old trees, a variety of every state tree is there. It's called the Children's Arboretum. So it has a lot of special places. We've named, Cheetah Hideout and Kitty Tree, and, there's a little rose garden there. But it is pretty wild for the most part, big meadows. And there's a little creek that runs through. I also am at a pond. Well, there's two ponds. It's called Whitaker Ponds here in Portland, and it's a nature park that we have uh, a table actually in a covered structure with backpack hooks. It's more of like a setup for classroom, if you will, without walls. And then there's a space that we go the whole park, but this is like our headquarters that we call it. And there's a big fig tree that we climb in, and it's right next to our table and backpack hooks. So yeah, we have buckets and we have a space to do things, tools to bring around the park. And so yes, public parks like that. So people from Portland are walking the trails. We'll see people walking their dogs in the arboretum, not at the ponds. There's no dogs allowed, but so yeah, that's another element to having a program with children.
Right, right. And other people can bring more things to work around to it. Yeah. Yeah. So, do you think, now you said that you work with a population that may not be well served within the
Mhm.
general school, public school area. What do you think are the specific benefits
Mhm.
of bringing children who are on the spectrum, who have sensory processing um,
Mhm.
disabilities? What do you think are the specific benefits to them of exposing them to nature?
Yeah. Well, I think the benefits for children with various disabilities, it's the same benefits for all children, and that's to build confidence and regulation and opportunities for resilience and collaboration. That nature, I believe, is the best teacher. So having time in all weather and year round gives an opportunity for that. Uh, Resilience and confidence building, and the key benefits, I think, for children who may have like a challenge to regulation or a challenge with children with different diagnoses, like sensory or autism, or the list could go on, ADHD, is that they have the freedom of the outdoors and unstructured, that gives them, I think, a space that feels nurturing in a way that maybe the classroom, the hard surfaces, the loud echoing noises doesn't, the lights. I remember teaching in a classroom setting, and I would intentionally turn off my overhead lights uh, and just have lamps, going instead, because of just that light entering. It affects so much more than light affects so much more than you'd think. So having sunlight is, I think, imperative for children's health and well-being. There's less colds outside. There's less, in terms of sleep. They sleep better. So yeah, I think being able to also know that things are equal parts wild and calming, right? That nature provides, they can really engage and improve their regulation. So if they need to have big body movements, they can run and go do that, right? They can roll around and fall on the ground. And you can't do that so much in a classroom. You're asked to sit in your seat or on the ground and for long periods of time. And that's that freedom of movement is huge for all children, and especially children who need support with regulation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, because I think sometimes we think about um, nature having such a variety of um, textures and sounds and
Mhm.
smells that we think, oh, we need to control a child's environment, right? But inside, they are still bombarded with sounds and textures
Mhm.
and sights, and I use that word bombard, right? Because outside it's a much more gentle introduction to
Mhm.
it. And you do have, like you said, the opportunity to give yourself the
Mhm.
space and the time that you need to sit by yourself under a tree, or,
Mhm.
move to wherever you need to be, whether that is, heightened movement, right?
Mhm.
Or a lower sense of it. But what do you think? What have been the challenges
Yeah,
of being outside and, really not having control over the environment? Do you have any specific examples?
sure. Yes, I was just thinking about that as you were talking, hearing words reflected back too, is, children who don't fit the mold, right? They will find their voice and their agency when they're in nature. They tend to, even just this week, a child who um, he he has never been to a camp without, or like a situation where he didn't have a lot of emotional just dysregulation at the beginning, and having a hard time leaving, and his mom was like, this is crazy, I've never seen my child do this. He runs to get there and he just waves goodbye. He's never done that, and so he's never had an outdoor experience, day in and day out. And especially with this, like, it's his voice and his agency, as I was saying, this idea that, he gets to go on and on about the things that are in his mind. And it doesn't matter if the tree is listening to him, right? The birds are hearing his stories. And he, today he sat in a tree. It was like almost a whole hour, just like telling us things from his treetop, spot. And yeah, so, and just the seeing the families, and that's what I want to say too, is challenges and solutions for inclusion in your programs really starts with the families, and knowing the families. And that's one of the things I've built into my program. I will meet with the families on a Zoom call, kind of like what we're doing monthly, so that they can check in and we can offer solutions and ideas. And so not only do I do the professional collaboration, but I also do just the parent family connection. But yeah, I think with, like, physical accessibility has been, if I want a child who is in a wheelchair, for instance, or has some sort of device, how are they coming into the program? How are they getting to where I am with the uneven terrain? So one of the reasons I chose the Children's Arboretum is because they recently did a paved path through the whole park. So they don't get to go on some of the park, but a good portion of the park you can get through on a paved surface. And I choose to have my celebrations there because of grandparents that come too, that might have a walker, or because I love the whole family to be included. And but like communication differences, like I was mentioning, the child who was, reciting the periodic table today to us, and when they were discovered and who discovered this and where they were born. And so he had someone to hear all that, and he could just go with it. It wasn't like, oh, you have to be quiet now because we're trying to do this over here. There's plenty of space for us to be, and we could move ourselves, and he could still feel like he's part of something. And then he, if he felt like all of a sudden jumping around and, going to do his, getting his physical, sensory needs in, he could do that. And sensory needs for all children too. I mean, having, I'll set up hammocks, and just having them be able to close in and have that swinging, and the vestibular, it's so calming for them. And that goes for everybody. I mean, I enjoy a hammock. And behavioral support. So when I'm out there, I am in the public spaces. And so like, if, for instance, if there's a kid who might want to run, right? You've, we've all been there. You're like, wait a minute, I've got all these other kids. So one of the things for my behavioral support I do, because I have a good connection with the families, is I have a very easy, like, hey, we have this understanding about this child, and if you need to come, you have to come. So that's kind of one of the things. And then I also have good relationships with, there's another little preschool that is at the Arboretum that teacher Nick, he has been a helpful person, you know, as a backup, like if we both can like play off of each other. So having another person. And then also in the, at the ponds, it's, there's a whole, we're right next to it, an office that does Columbia Slough Watershed Council. So they have an education department, and we've got a good relationship with them, but I haven't had much, you know, need to call on, you know, these other adults for like behavioral support. Definitely parents. But for the most part, if, and this is, we'll get into this a little deeper probably, but the solutions and adaptations are coming from the relationship that I have built. And I've done that through a series of one-on-ones also. So my time with some of these students, because maybe a group is hard for them, that I'll build that relationship with one-on-ones, and then maybe two-on-one, right? So then we slowly introduce a group. And I never go above 10 children. So my group's always pretty small anyway. But yeah, that relationship building and the connections that I know and they know with me is key.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right?
Mhm.
Don't try to do it by yourself, right?
Yes.
This is about community, it's
Yeah.
about families, right? Of, you know, finding that outer support and always working together to find a solution, whether it is, you know, just modifying the space that you have access to, right? I found you had a child that had a need, and you found a space that could accommodate that
Mhm.
need, right? Which, you know, is a good, you know, open nature space still, but being able to find places that do work, right?
Mhm.
I saw one place, I don't know if you've ever seen this, where they had you mentioned communication. They had a communication board,
Mhm.
which was very cool, right? You think of children that are nonverbal,
Mhm.
and use, you know, an electronic device where they're, you know, pressing on pictures. Basically, it was just an analog version of that, right? A laminated sheet with the picture cues that they could, you know, touch when they needed something. So you can bring things in
Mhm. Cue
to
cards like that.
wild
Yeah,
space. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. And the idea too of having the extra support and the caregivers being in partnership with you and to tailor that support, like you mentioned, is key. But there's also the practices of the staff. Like, you know, I have taken a lot of coursework on neurodivergency, right? Because of my background with teaching in, you know, the gifted and talented population with twice, they call it twice exceptional, the children I
Mhm.
worked with in terms of so having another um diagnoses. But the barrier, you know, we can get back into that, is not everyone has those understandings or practices, right? So having that training, giving time for adults to kind of, you know, get on the same page and understand. There's trauma informed, you know, practices that are really key, especially in the outdoors. There was a class that was just recently offered, actually it was last year now, say recently, if it was last year, with the Wild Med, which is where for my any teachers or volunteers, I encourage them to have certification for first aid and CPR training, like backcountry Backwoods
Mhm.
and Wild Med has a wonderful course on like trauma informed and um, support, like the emotional, social emotional support for children outdoors. Um,
Are they
and
doing that again at Natural Start this year? Okay. Little plug
yeah,
for Natural Start.
yeah, natural start.
Here you go.
I was so busy with that last year this time. And so it's like funny seeing it all come back around. They're doing all online though this year. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
that's, yeah, but you can still do some of those courses, like what we're just talking about.
Yeah. So how else did you find courses and how did you go about
Mm.
right getting that education, learning about what the adaptations might be?
Yeah, so I think my own personal journey, I think has just what books I choose from the bookstore, what webinars I choose to, attend, or who I'm talking with at the conferences, and what, where I'm making my schedule for the conference, for instance. So from other teachers and from books and webinars and I mean coursework I did for my degree. My degree is in education policy and leadership with sustainability as a focus and sustainability in education. So with that degree, I think it's helped me also think about adults and how children grow up to be adults, right? And so the kinds of challenges, be it the social, emotional, the problem solving skills, those soft skills they call in the workplace, really are key to learn when you're young and when you have those when when you can cry and like get mad and stomp around and do the things and figure out how to regulate that and with a supportive uh, surrounding and like I was mentioning earlier, that inclusivity of nature is just it's the equal parts. It really supports um, and the non-structured play, right? It's play based. What I do is play based. It's unstructured, meaning that I'm not holding them to a rigid schedule. I keep it very I find myself as I call myself a guide, where I'm like Maria Montessori says, like the teacher should be like a fly on the wall, and the child is doing the work themselves, right? The child is the one, like you might be like a guide just there. Um, and so through the conflict resolution and all the joys that I need a scarf right now, or I need to have a whatever it is, I need to have some paint, or I have the tools right ready for them. um so yeah, advocating for just that freedom of unstructured and risk taking is so important, and I think that's what I'm drawn to learn about and to continue that learning. And that's why I think Oleo, because we're, talking with you and other educators and program owners, that they we bring up, well, what do you do when this happens, or even just like nature pottying, so we can kind of come together and share tips and tricks, and also resources for what best practice there is out
Oh, yeah.
there.
People are out there doing it. If you seek it, if it's important to you and you search that information, you will.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I just attended one. I can't remember the title of it, but it was through, it's called the Trailheads is the newsletter I get, but it's through Outdoor Classroom, I believe. And they did one on an inclusive spaces in Chicago, and a lot of these children come with their siblings. So it was really cool. They have a space so like a big water area that's elevated, so the wheelchairs could come next to it. And then their sibling, who it doesn't have isn't special needs, is there with them. So, but it's only for children. Like the adult doesn't come with them. And if they don't have a sibling, then they have like a volunteer child, be their sibling for the day, for the time. So like they have a partner of a child and a child with disabilities in the space doing things. And yeah, it was really cool. I don't remember the time. I'll send it to you but I just
Yeah,
attended
yeah,
that.
definitely. That sounds very interesting.
It was very cool to see and hear, because this space has been in that family for like a number of years. And so the granddaughter was giving the sharing about it. And it was just cool to hear how, they had this vision, and they because of the family, and then they have opened the doors for other children to come and have time in nature and touch the water and play, and have the sunlight dance in their hair, and get in the grass, and pull on just what is engaged, like pull something apart, and have the smells. And yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Des. I'm so glad that you shared your wisdom with us. And I wish
I
you
do.
all of luck this summer. You have one more thing to add?
I do. I wanted to get into, I was just looking at my notes, some things for like funding realities. I wanted
Oh, okay.
to
Yeah.
okay. So because I was just on the committee for making the rules for the licensing, and we were highlighting not only with with Natural Start, I'm working with them on making like advice for policy around licensing. And so that's with other states. But then here in Oregon, I was also on the RAC, they call it the Rules and Advisory Committee, for the policies and for the licensing. And one of the things we were highlighting a lot is the funding realities of having inclusive programs and how they need additional sources. And that's something I think Oleo could really push and support, because I've written like, grant proposals for specific gear, and, the community partnerships that I have, that's time. The one-on-ones are time, but advocating for this like funding shift so that the adaptations and like can help support statewide inclusive outdoor space. And it's not perfection, it's practice. Being inclusion, anything is practice in this life. So being willing to learn and adapt. What's good for children with special needs, like I was mentioning, is good for all children, and nature is definitely the key. So when we design like a space that includes belonging, and nature becomes a space that children can really feel they belong, because they are nature. And yeah, that's my last words.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I think you hit on a lot of important points, and I think my biggest takeaway is the collaboration, right? That you keep coming back to, and that you added there at the end, not just with community partners, not just with families, but with other people, other nature school providers within your state that can help push policy, that can help give you ideas, who might know things that we don't know. Right? And when you have that hive mind, then everybody wins. So thank you again, Des, for taking time out of your day to meet with us. I'm sure I will see you at the next Oleo meeting, and everybody else. I will see you next week for another episode of Wildwood Teaching.